Now this is a milestone. If you asked me what the most important Famicom game was, it would come down to either Super Mario Bros. Or Dragon Quest. And it would be really hard to pick between them. Dragon Quest is a clear delineation mark in the history of video games. After it, everyone just wanted to be Dragon Quest. It's the template for JRPGs. A cultural phenomenon that continues to this day. But being most important doesn't mean it's good. For years I thought about doing a playthrough of the Dragon Quest series, then looked over at Dragon Quest I and went, maybe not. The story in Dragon Quest is about as archetypical as it comes. Princess Lola, one of those two, has been kidnapped by the evil Dragon Lord. It's up to you as the brave hero to rescue her and defeat the villain whose monsters are plaguing the land. There really isn't that much to Dragon Quest I. Depending on how you want to slice it, there's about 4 or 5 key things that you have to do. And then you have to grind. We're going to see that a lot in these 8-bit RPGs, but in Dragon Quest I, 99% of your playing time is going to be spent wandering around and fighting monsters so that you can get strong enough to survive to the next location, or so that you have enough gold to buy the next item up. And the scaling is terrible. A good rule of thumb is that the amount of experience required for the next level is twice what was required for the previous one. It's not precisely that, but it helps to think about it that way. The catch here is that the experience points rewards don't scale up the same way. So when you've identified the spot where you can get the most experience for your level, it's still going to take you substantially longer to go from level 10 to level 11 than it did for you to go from level 9 to level 10. The equipment scaling is even worse. Right from the start, the gold requirements to get items is absurdly high compared to what you can earn. A good example of this is that you're given 120 gold to start. You have no equipment, so let's go over to the first town to shop. You can fully outfit yourself with that 120 gold, but that requires buying armor and a weapon that are half the strength of another weapon that you could buy. So really, your first goal is to get 220 gold to fully outfit your character. Spending that 30 gold to buy the weakest equipment puts you in a hole, since it's 130 gold to get the second tier equipment without a shield. So all you have to do is earn 10 gold, right? Well, at 1 gold piece per fight, it's very likely that you'll have to stop and go to the inn before you get enough gold to buy the armor. And once you have that, then it's time to start working on that 90 gold for the shield. But you're still only getting 1 or 2 gold per fight, even after you level up a couple times so you can walk over to fight tougher enemies. Dragon Quest starts with a grind, and the grind just keeps getting worse from there. With only one character under your control in Dragon Quest, the combat system is pretty simple. You've got attack, magic, item, or run away. You acquire magic by leveling up, and you don't even start with a basic healing spell. Generally speaking, you're best off using the magic to heal yourself and sustain how long you can remain out in the field, or disabling tough enemies. The direct damage spells aren't a very efficient use of your extremely limited magic points. There are also spells to help you outside of combat, like this one, which lights up dark areas. It's also much brighter than the torches that you can buy. Maybe the best thing that Dragon Quest has going for it is the sheer size of the game. It's bigger than any Famicom game we've seen so far. There's a sprawling world out there, unlike anything that players had seen before. Unfortunately, it's mostly empty. There's only a tiny handful of towns and dungeons to go into. Having the villain's castle visible right from the start of the game is a neat twist, but it also kind of represents how little there is. You'll keep coming back to the same place because there is nothing else. Well, that and the free magic refill, which you can use to fully heal so you don't have to rest at an inn. Of course, one of the biggest problems with Dragon Quest is that the interface is just terrible. Not only do you have to go into a menu to choose to talk to someone, you have to choose what direction you want to talk in. It feels like the commands exist to give the player something to do, rather than automating all of the trivial tasks. That, and it's because Dragon Quest isn't really original. Okay, it's original in the sense that it's the first RPG designed specifically for a console. But the game borrows heavily from the two most popular computer RPGs, Ultima and Wizardry, and in particular, Ultima 3. Wizardry is the primary inspiration for the combat system, having a monster randomly occur, a portrait pop up, and then you go through a series of turn-based menu-driven commands. That's pure wizardry. From the Ultima series, Dragon Quest took the dual-scale maps, how the primary quest in the game was just getting access to the villain's castle, which you could see, how you had to find the most powerful items in the game by obtaining hints and then searching in the correct spot, the importance of getting keys and how difficult they are to obtain, and overcomplicating the interface by making players do a lot of basic functions. It's not an intentional choice that they did that, it's just that's how things were done in the games that they were copying. It's impossible to talk about Dragon Quest without mentioning Akira Toriyama's artwork for it. Dragon Ball was at its height when Dragon Quest was being created, so getting Toriyama to design characters for the game was actually quite an accomplishment. It probably helped Toriyama that there's only a handful of monsters, but they're all cute and distinctive. They help Dragon Quest look better than just about any Famicom game to date. Now you might have noticed that the version that I'm playing doesn't seem a lot like the Dragon Warrior that you might be familiar with. And that's because Dragon Warrior was basically rebuilt from the ground up. The Famicom version has greatly reduced graphics, including characters that only ever face one direction. It also doesn't have a battery for saves. Instead, it uses a spell of resurrection, or what we might call a password. You have to get it from the king, so if you want to quit the game, you have to march all the way back to the castle and talk to them. You might notice the odd formatting of the password. That's because it's a haiku. In Dragon Quest I, the passwords are 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, and then 3 by themselves at the end. There's one more difference between the US and Japanese versions. If you agree to join the Dragon Lord at the end of the game, you get a special password that lets you restart the game with much lower stats. Effectively, it makes you one level lower for most of the game. Despite being a strong contender for the most important game on the system, Dragon Quest wasn't an immediate hit. It did very well, but it was the Famicom sequels that really dominated. And it was the success of those that made people go back and get the original. The result of that is that Dragon Quest was the 19th best-selling Famicom game, moving just over 1.5 million copies in Japan. This format that I've inflicted on myself doesn't really lend itself to examining RPGs. In the case of Dragon Quest, I was lucky enough to have a stalled-out playthrough from about 6 months ago where I still had the password. And that kind of illustrates my feelings with Dragon Quest. I want to play it and like it, but it's way too primitive even by the standards of RPGs from the 80s. That said, it was still far ahead of everyone else on the consoles in 1986. We're going to see an awful lot of RPGs on the Famicom, and very few of them live up even to this standard.